Some voices don't disappear, they get edited out. Miss Melodie was one of them. Not because she lacked power, not because she didn't matter, but because history has selective memory. And sometimes the women who stood at the center of revolution get written out of the story entirely. This is about one of those women. Her name was Miss Melodie, and if you've never heard of her, that's exactly the problem. She was one of hip-hop's first publicly married power couples, her and KRS-One. She stood on stages when female MCs were still fighting for the microphone. She spit bars on self-destruction, the anthem that opened Billboard's new rap chart at #1. And yet, when we talk about hip-hop's golden age, when we celebrate the women who paved the way, her name rarely comes up. Why? That's what we're here to find out. If you love uncovering hidden legends like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Legends Underrated, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Brooklyn, 1969, the year Ramona Scott arrived, years before the Bronx would send hip-hop across the world. March 21st, a baby girl enters the world in Flatbush, a neighborhood that would shape her, test her, and ultimately launch her into a movement she couldn't have imagined. She wasn't born into wealth or fame, but into a family that believed in music, expression, and finding your voice when the world tries to silence it. Ramona had an older sister named Pamela. Everyone called her Harmony. That name wasn't an accident. Pamela could sing like an angel, could rap with precision, could move between melodies and rhythms like she was born to do both. The Scott sisters were watching hip-hop being invented in real time. It was in the parks, on the corners, in the community centers where DJs spun records and MCs grabbed microphones. Ramona started rhyming at parties. Just a kid, really. But when she opened her mouth, something happened. Her voice was soft, smooth, almost melodic, like she was singing, even when she was rapping. People would stop and say, wait, is she singing or rhyming? The answer was both. Neither. Something entirely her own. She needed a name that captured that duality. One day, working through her own verses, the words came together. Miss Melodie. Not Miss Independent. Self-determined. A woman, not a girl. And the name stuck. It's the mid-'80s. Hip-hop is exploding, but it's still underground, still fighting for legitimacy. Ramona is still honing her craft, still waiting for her moment. And then one night at a club in the Bronx, everything changes. DJ Scott LaRock was a social worker by day. By night, he was spinning records, building a sound that would reshape East Coast rap. One of the people under his care at the Franklin Men's Shelter was a young man named Lawrence Parker, homeless, hungry, but brilliant. He had a rap name already, KRS-One. Knowledge reigned supreme over nearly everyone. Scott LaRock saw something in him and brought KRS-One with him to his DJ gigs. That's how Ramona met him. At one of those clubs, a social worker's side project, and a homeless dreamer with a microphone. The connection was instant, not just romantic, but creative, artistic, and Ramona's family did something extraordinary. They opened their door, let KRS-One move in, fed him, housed him, believed in his dream when he had nothing but words and hunger. That kind of faith, it changes people. It changed him, and it bound them together in ways that would define both their lives. By 1986, Boogie Down Productions was born. KRS-One, Scott LaRock, and D-Nice. Their debut album, Criminal Minded, dropped in '87, and it was a grenade thrown into the culture. Songs like South Bronx and The Bridge Is Over ignited the Bridge Wars, a lyrical battle with MC Shan and the Juice Crew over who really birthed hip-hop. Bronx versus Queens. And Ramona, she was there for all of, watching the empire rise, watching her man become a legend. In July 1987, they married one of hip-hop's first publicly married power couples. That's not just trivia, that's history. In a culture where relationships were often turbulent or hidden, they made it official. The wedding reception? According to KRS-One's brother, Kenny Parker, he and Scott LaRock showed up in basketball shorts, to a wedding reception. Ramona was livid, but it was also so perfectly hip-hop, irreverent, unpolished, real. But just weeks later, on August 27, 1987, everything shattered. Scott LaRock was trying to help Denise resolve a dispute in the South Bronx. It should have been nothing, but it escalated. Shots rang out, a bullet hit Scott LaRock in the back of the head. By the time they got him to Lincoln Hospital, it was too late. 25 years old, gone. Hip-hop's first major tragedy. This was one of the architects of the sound, murdered over nothing. And it broke something in the culture, broke something in KRS-One, broke something in Ramona, who just married into a family, now grieving its leader. But out of that grief came transformation. He shifted from battle-hardened street reportage to full-on teacher, and Miss Melodie was right there beside him, ready to use her voice for something bigger. 1988. Miss Melodie drops her first single, Hype. According to Miss Melodie, the production is sharp, her flow is aggressive, confident, unapologetic. Critics call it excellent. She's not riding coattails, she's carving her own lane. And then comes the movie moment. Keenan Ivory Wayans is making I'm Gonna Get You Sucka, a satirical love letter to blaxploitation films. He wants Boogie Down Productions for the soundtrack. The song is called Jack of Spades, and it's pure hip-hop cinema. Miss Melodie appears in the film, performing the track, bringing that energy, that style, that undeniable presence. Jive Records signed her to a solo deal alongside KRS-One. This was it, her moment, her album. But before Diva could drop, something else happened. In 1988, a teenager was killed at a Boogie Down Productions and Public Enemy show at a club called Latin Quarter, another senseless death. KRS-One couldn't stay silent. Scott LaRock's murder still haunted him. This new tragedy pushed him over the edge. He formed the Stop the Violence movement. The idea was simple but revolutionary. Get the biggest names in rap to come together on one track, one message, one mission. Stop the violence. The track was called Self-Destruction, and when KRS-One put out the call, nearly everyone answered. Heavy D, Cool Mo D, MC Light, Doug E, Fresh, Just Ice, Stetsasonic, Public Enemy's Chuck D and Flavor Flav, D Nice, and Miss Melodie. But here's where it gets complicated. Russell Simmons, the head of Def Jam Records, didn't support the song. That meant LL Cool J, Run DMC, none of the Def Jam roster was supposed to participate. LL Cool J didn't show up to the video shoot, but he did go to the studio and wrote MC Light's verse. Run didn't show up, but DMC and Jam Master Jay said forget it. They showed up anyway. Stories like these are why I built Legends Underrated. Make sure you're subscribed for more untold tales and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? BET refused to play the video, said it was too long, but MTV played it constantly. Fab Five, Freddie, and Ed Lover championed it on Yo! MTV Raps. When Billboard launched the Hot Rap Singles chart on March 11th, 1989, Self-Destruction debuted at #1 and Miss Melodie's calm but commanding verse helped define the record's message. The anthem raised over $100,000 for the National Urban League. I'm Miss Melodie and I'm a born-again rebel. The violence in rap must cease and settle. She wasn't just there. She commanded the moment. She held her own among legends. And then came Diva, 1989, her debut album, her only album, produced largely by KRS-One, with contributions from Sam Sever and DJ Teddy Ted. The singles were strong. Wake Up, Wake Up, climbed into the top 20 on the Billboard Hot Rap Singles chart. Live on Stage got heavy rotation on video channels. She appeared in Queen Latifah's Ladies First video that same year, standing alongside Moni Love, representing for the women who were rewriting the rules. In 1990, she was featured on KRS-One's Edutainment album on a track called 7 DJs, with cameos from the BDP Circle and her sister Harmony. She was everywhere. She was undeniable. She was Miss Melodie. But visibility doesn't always mean permanence. 1992, after 5 years of marriage, Miss Melodie and KRS-One divorced. The reasons were never made public. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was growing in different directions. Whatever it was, it ended. And when it ended, so did her public presence. She didn't drop another album, didn't chase the fame. She stepped back, raised her 2 sons, lived her life away from the cameras, away from the stages, away from the noise. Maybe it was choosing peace over performance. Maybe it was reclaiming her life from an industry that takes and takes and takes. Her sister Harmony took a different path. Ramona Scott found a new calling. She became a lead vocalist for the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir, one of the most celebrated gospel choirs in the world. Under the direction of Carol Cymbala, the choir won 6 Grammy Awards, the most of any gospel choir in history. Harmony's voice, once used to spit bars, now lifted prayers and praise. And somewhere in Brooklyn, Ramona watched her sister shine, proud, maybe a little wistful, but at peace with her own choices. The years passed quietly. No new music, no comeback tours. Miss Melodie became a memory, a footnote, a whatever happened to question that few people asked. The culture moved on. New female rappers rose. Lil' Kim, Foxy Brown, Eve, Missy Elliott, Lauryn Hill, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion. Each generation standing on the shoulders of the ones before. But how many of them knew Miss Melodie's name? The erasure was slow, quiet, almost gentle, but it was erasure nonetheless. July 17, 2012. Ramona Parker, born Ramona Scott, known to the world as Miss Melodie, passes away in her sleep at the age of 43. The cause of death was never publicly disclosed. 43 years old, far too young, far too soon. Rapper D-Nice tweeted that he'd had a pleasant conversation with her just a month before. The last thing she told him was that she was proud of him. Proud. After everything she'd done, after everything she'd built, she was still lifting other people up, still encouraging, still believing in the culture that had forgotten her. Her 2 sons mourned in private. Her sister Harmony grieved while continuing to lead worship. KRS-One acknowledged her passing with respect but little fanfare. The hip-hop community offered condolences. A few obituaries were written. And then, as quickly as the news came, it faded. Life moved on. This twist shocked the world. And if you never want to miss stories like this, subscribe to Legends Underrated today and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? But here's the thing that haunts me. Why don't we say her name? Why isn't Miss Melodie mentioned in the same breath as MC Lyte, Queen Latifah, Roxanne Shante, Salt and Pepper? She was there. She was part of the movement. She was on the first hot rap singles #1 in Billboard's history. She released a critically acclaimed album. She was one half of one of hip-hop's first publicly married power couples. She stood beside one of the greatest MCs of all time and held her own. So why the silence? Maybe it's because she stepped away. Maybe it's because the industry rewards persistence and punishes absence. Or maybe it's something darker. Maybe it's because we still don't value women's contributions the way we should. Maybe it's because we see them as accessories to men's stories rather than authors of their own. Maybe it's because Miss Melodie refused to be loud, refused to be messy, refused to create drama, and in an industry that thrives on spectacle, quiet dignity gets forgotten. But forgotten doesn't mean gone. Erased doesn't mean she never existed. Miss Melodie was real, her voice was real, her impact was real. And if we're going to tell the story of hip-hop's golden age, if we're going to honor the women who paved the way, then we have to say her name. Ramona Scott, Miss Melodie, the soft-voiced rebel, the woman who spit bars about ending violence while the world was still figuring out what female MCs could be. She mattered. She matters. And her story deserves to be told. So here's my question for you. Who else has been erased? Who else stood at the center of history and got written out? Drop a name in the comments. Tell me who you want to hear about next. Because the work isn't done. The stories aren't finished. And as long as there's breath in this channel, we're going to keep uncovering the legends the world forgot. Because hip-hop's story isn't complete without the women who built it, and Miss Melodie's voice still echoes if we choose to listen